Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Maths Made Easy with Terry in 10 minutes. All right. We're going to talk about how we're talking about simplifying of algebraic fractions. So that will be talking about for the last 3 videos now. All right. So in this video, I want to talk about how do you then add and subtract algebraic fractions. And we're going to talk about it quickly. So let's jump to it. So if you've not subscribed and if you've not liked the channel, please don't forget to do so. All right. Okay. Let's say we have A over B plus C over D, and you're meant to ask this. Then if you say A plus C divided by B plus D, this is wrong. All right. If the denominators are different, you can add the numerators. But, okay, if you have A over B plus C over B, then you can now get A plus C over B. Then you can work with this. All right. So now the rules we're going to talk about how do you add and subtract algebraic fractions is going to stem from this. So the aim of what we want to do is that I want to make sure that both of them have the same denominator. So it will be easy for us to add the numerator. So let's quickly go through. So I have what we call the 4 rules, okay, of adding and subtracting what? Algebraic fraction. Now, the first rule is that we need to first check, are both of the denominators the same or different? So the first rule is that the denominators must be the same. So that means both denominators must be the same. Okay? Then, when both denominators are the same, so there are 2 options here. So it's possible that you could get some questions that they are the same, or you could get some questions that they are different, okay? So if they are the same, you can just jump to step 3, okay? If same, you just go to step 3 of these rules. But if they are different, then you have to go to what? Step 2. All right, so that means step 2 is optional. If it's different, you have to do step 2, but if it's the same, you just jump all the way to step 3. So step 2. Now that means if they are different, what you have to do is that you have to then multiply. So that means basically they are different, right? So because they are different, you have to multiply the other fractions numerator and denominator by its denominator and vice versa. So remember I said before, when you have a fraction, the top one here is the numerator, and the bottom one here is the what? The denominator. Okay, so if they are different, what you have to do, you have to multiply the other fraction numerator and denominator by its denominator. And vice versa. Okay, so for instance, let's say we have A over B plus C over D. Now what you do, you multiply the other fraction numerator and denominator by its denominator and vice versa. So that means in this case, we're going to have A over B, this is denominator, times D over D, plus the same thing, C over D. We're going to multiply by this denominator here, B over what? B. Are you seeing it? So even if it's negative, the same thing also applies. So that means if, for instance, this was a negative question, so we had A over B minus C over D, the same thing. is going to be the a over b. You multiply this by the denominator of the other fraction, and that will give you d over d minus. So we have c over d multiplied by b over what? b. Okay. Now, so when you've done this, you'll now notice that the resultant will be two fractions having the same denominator. So you notice that the resultant, okay, will be two fractions. The resultant will be two fractions with the same denominator. Okay, so if you look at this, we'll take for the first one, you will see that it will be a times d will give you ad over b times d will give you bd plus c times b will give you cb over bd. Can you see? Or if it's the second one, it's going to be a times d will give you ad over b times d will give you what? bd minus c times b will give you cb over d times b will give you db. So you can see that after step 2, the aim of step 2 now is to ensure that both denominators are the same. Then when you're done with that, you just go to step 3. Now, step 3 is the common denominator for both of them. So remember I said if it's the same, you jump to step 3. So now at this stage now, we have the same denominator for both of them. So now the step 3 now, because they're having the same, so you can add or subtract depending, all right? So you can add or subtract. So if it's addition, you add. If it's subtraction, you add. Subtract, sorry. If it's a mix, you mix both of them. So you add or subtract the numerator, okay, together. And you also do the same thing for the denominator. All right, and the denominator together. Okay, so you add or subtract, you add the numerator together and the denominator together. So if we go back to this one, we have AD over BD. So we have AD over BD plus we have CB over BD. So we have CB over BD. So, and the second one is the same thing, but just a negative sign. So we have AB over BD minus CB over BD. So because they're having the same denominator, we can just add the numerators together. Okay. Sorry. So because they have the same one now, we add the numerators together and we select. So I meant select here. Okay. Not adding the denominator. I beg your pardon. So you select one of the denominator. Okay? You select one of the denominator. So what we're going to do now is we add them together. So we select one of the denominator because they're the same. It's going to become BD. Then we now have AB plus what? CD. The same thing, we select one of the denominators. It's going to become BD, and it's going to become AB minus CB. Are you seeing it? Then step 4 is then you simplify. So remember, this is one of the algebraic fractions we talked about, where we talked about the forms of algebraic fractions. So you can see that this one of this, I think this is the form 3 or something similar to some of the forms. So you now, depending if they have a common factors, if the denominators and the numerators are the same, you now have to play around with it and simplify. So you now simplify if needed. Is that okay? You simplify if needed. So these are the 4 rules. This is how you solve the question. You first check, are the both denominators, are they the same? If they are the same, you go to step 3, you jump step 2. But if they are different, you go to step 2. Now, when you're in step 2, you now multiply the other fraction by its denominator and vice versa. Then when you've done that, you now notice that they both have a resultant same denominator, all right? Then you now select one of the denominator and you just add the numerators together, and after that you simplify. Now, when you're done with that, the next thing is that you can now play around and see how you can break it down to a simple form or make other manipulations as well. So I'm going to pick a question now and see, let us apply wall wavelength already. So I'm going to pick a question and so I'm going to do this example now. Let's say we have a particular example. Let's say we have maybe 3 over t squared plus 2 over t, and you are told to express this as a single fraction. All right, so the same thing, we will just follow it. So if you look at it from step one said both denominators must be the same. So if you look at what we did here, you'll see the denominators are not the same. So therefore, because they're not the same, we have to go to step 2. Is that okay? So in step 2, if they're different, we have to then multiply the denominator of the other fraction by the numerator to its numerator and denominator. So what you do now is that in this case, so we're going to multiply this fraction by the numerator, by the denominator of this, okay? So it's going to become 3 over t squared multiplied by t over t plus, then we'll repeat the same thing. We're going to use this to multiply this whole fraction. So it's going to be 2 over t multiplied by t squared over what? T squared. Then you will now see that the resultant value will be 3t over t cubed plus 2t squared over what? T cubed. Are you seeing it? Now, then the other step 3, said that we then have to select one of the denominator, can you see? And add the numerators together. So we have to select. So now we have to select 1. So we just select 1, just use t3 cubed. And we're going to add this together, 3t plus 2t squared. Okay. Now we're done with this, but we can't just stop here. Step 4 said we should simplify if we need to. So definitely we need to simplify. So we're going to use factorization common method here. So what is common between the numerator is t, leaving us with 3 plus 2t. Can you see? Divided by t into bracket t squared. Are you seeing it? So that means this, we'll cancel this out, and the answer we're going to have is 3 plus 2t over what? T squared. Or you can use the other method I talked about in the 3 forms of algebraic fraction. It can be 3 over t squared plus 2t over t squared. This t will cancel 1, so you're going to have 3 over t squared plus 2 over t, and that will be the answer for that. All right, so let me pick one more example, and so that let me just say an example that has a negative sign just to balance it out. All right, so let's say we have 5 over x minus 6 over y, and you are told, for instance, to do this as well. So remember that when you're talking about this kind of questions, you have to ensure that they are really, really what? Correct. So if you have, like for instance, you have 5x minus 60, all right? So you have 5x minus 6 over y, and you are told to solve something like this. The same thing, we'll go back to the videos, the rules. You see that they are different. We apply the same rule, step 2. So you have to multiply this by y. So it's going to be 5 over x multiplied by y over y, then minus 6 over y multiplied by what? X over x. You multiply that, it's going to give you 5y over xy minus 6x over what? Xy. Are you seeing it? Then, because they are the same, you take 1 out, it's going to become xy, and that will give you 5y minus what? 6x. And now you can see in this case now, we can't go further than that, or you can leave it as 5y over xy minus 6x over xy. So if you do it this way, this will cancel this out, and you're still coming back to the original question again. Is that making sense? So that's the reason why you just have to leave it like this. This is the best way you can go from here. So your answer is going to become 5y minus 6x divided by xy. And that is that for that. Okay, and that will bring us to the end on how to add and subtract algebraic fractions. So you have techniques of denominator. If the denominator is not the same, if you have to then multiply the other denominator to the numerator and denominator of the previous ones, then you now see that the resultant is going to be the same. When you're now done with that, you add and subtract and just select one of the denominator and you then simplify. All right, and then you have to go around. So solve more questions, all are almost the same thing. The next video, I'm going to talk about equations now. I'm going to introduce the concept of equations, and we'll see how we go from there. So like I say, don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to, if you have any question, please email me, or you can just drop it in the comment section. Or if you have a particular question you want us to tackle, drop it in the comment section, and the viewers can have a look and try and give your feedback as well. Thank you very much. So I'm going to see you in the next video, which is going to be on equations. So have a nice day.